get this out, guys. It says a major issue on Russian TV, and what this article is about is they were arguing in an article that some of the groups of Russian war correspondents were saying that the Ukrainian army is finished and that Poland now has come in with 12,000 troops. So what does that mean? And that's what you're looking at here. That means that NATO is now involved. And what will happen as soon as Poland gets hit, which they did, they brought in a whole brigade that got eliminated. Will that cause the NATO group, I call them the regime of evil, will that eliminated? Will that cause the NATO group, I call them the regime of evil, will that cause them to come in and join and we have bona fide World War III? I think that's what they're pushing. And guys, what's happening is the West keeps saying they want to find a peaceful solution, but first they want to try. Listen to this. This is really funny. They want to bring Vladimir Putin and some of his people in for a court and trials on war crimes. While they're getting their butts handed to them, you're going to go in and demand that the president of Russia that's kicking your butt goes to trial for war crimes. That is democratic mentality, and it's a demonic push to destruction. But Poland's now involved. Now, when I saw this article...
All right, Shalom. This is Har One Ban Yasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp. I want to say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, Ba Hashem Yahushai, Ba Hashem Harakak Wadash, Ma'amah. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and the elders. Shalom to you, Akim. Nakwatim and children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. All right, I want to start off with this scripture because this is the times we're pushing, that we're coming into, where countries, the nations that are in allegiance with NATO and with America, they're pushing that democratic agenda to where they're saying they want peace, but at the same time they're starting war. All right, calling for peace, 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 but behind the scenes they're starting the war. All right, and that's the mindset of these politicians. All right, this is the mindset of those politicians to push to be promoting and saying peace, 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 but at the same time not honoring their agreements, right? Setting up militias in different countries, expanding America's army all throughout the world, and also, what they call being a terrorist to the world. This is Psalm 55:21. The words of his mouth, or actually verse 20, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant, and that's what Esau did. They broke their covenant with us, ultimately around 586 BC, when they joined in with the Babylonian army and came against us and broke their covenant agreement that they made with us during the times of King Jehoshaphat of Judah. All right, these damn Edomites. And they broke their peace treaty, and that's what they're known for, because they don't want peace. That's not in their spirit. Their blessing is to rule with the sword. All right. So even today, we're seeing the devil's tricks, the one-trick pony, calling for peace, just like they did with the Native Americans, the Gadites, and they brought nothing but war and destruction. They over there with Ukraine saying they're not getting involved, being busy in other men's affairs, ultimately to start a war, trying to bring about this war. Especially because you got China and Russia starting their own currency, all right, bringing about their own currency, which will deplete or destroy the petrodollar, the American dollar system, to where they're going to be forced to move off of that system and move to a digital system real soon, man. So it says here, Psalms 55 and 21, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, man. Smoother than butter. Slick. That's them politicians, them Democrats, saying they calling for peace, but ultimately they bringing war. And the general of NATO is usually an American general. So they're all tied together. And now that Poland has entered the war, Poland is one of the NATO allies, NATO members. Now Poland is basically in direct, NATO's in direct war with Russia now. All right. So the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war is in his heart. See, this is their plan to start this war. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords, man. Everything they say towards Russia is basically a threat, you know? This is Revelation 13 and 3. And I saw one of his heads as if it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, man. All right, and that deadly wound was healed for the Roman Empire that fell, the Western Roman Empire, and it was it's being healed with what you call the Treaty of Rome, which established the EU and the dragon. And then you still had the beast, which would be NATO, or and then ultimately the beast is the EU and NATO and America together. That's the whole beast system. All right. So it says here, verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon. See, all the world submitted to the plans of the EU, especially since 1991. Everybody was in fear of the EU and NATO since World War II, when NATO entered the war with America. And then in 1991, with the fall of the Soviet Union, you had the excelling and raising up of the EU. All right. The EU and NATO, they were on the scene running things. But now, in these times, since 2016, you had the Brexit. And since the Brexit, you had the reestablishment of the Soviet Union. That goes into Ezekiel 38. The Lord putting hooks in Russia's jaws and bringing them back and controlling them and putting them into that mindset of that war stance against America and its allies. All right, so Russia's being raised up through the Spirit of the Lord for these last days. Revelation 13 and 4. And they worshiped the dragon, all right, which gave power unto the beast. So they gave that financial and military power to NATO. NATO and America became the military front for the EU, the bankers. And so much that the EU didn't even have an army until a couple of years ago. They used NATO armies. You know, all the countries, the European countries that would come together in case of a war against Spain, China, and Russia. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And that beast means wild and untamable, immoral. So this system that they have set up with these nations over in Europe, they're all getting involved in this war with Russia and China. All right. It says, and they worship the beast, so they all submitted to the NATO system as well. It says, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" So it's a war machine. NATO is set up for war, and it needs an enemy for it to exist. It was set up as a deterrent against Russia and his allies, but Russia wasn't causing any problems for 10 years. They've just been building up their war, building up gold and silver in preparation to pull away from the petrodollar. So now war is on the forefront. NATO can thrive because it has an actual enemy now called Russia. All right, so who is able to make war with the beast? All right, that goes into Revelations 13:1. And I stood upon the sands of the sea, meaning upon the earth, and saw a beast rising up out of the sea, meaning coming upon the earth. All right, a system of nations together, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. And that goes into the establishment from the 10 common markets of Rome, later called the EU and NATO. All right, it started off with 27 countries. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, just like the Alexander put all the nations in fear. That's the same thing what NATO did. All right, put all the nations in fear, especially since World War II. And his feet were as the feet of a bear. So the end of that system is going to end with Russia. So the Lord raised up and said, "Who is able to make war with the beast?" All right. Who is able to make war with the beast? And the Lord made someone that's equipped, and that's Russia and people like China and its allies, according to Ezekiel 38. All right. So the feet were as the feet of a bear. So let's get that real quick. All right. Daniel chapter 2:40. And the 4th kingdom shall be strong as iron. All right, and it's talking about the Roman Empire, which ultimately was based around the 10 common markets of Rome. Now, as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Okay, so the dominant system that was on the earth was through the Roman Empire. It still is till this day, which would be the EU. All right, those European nations. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, and feet deal with 10 toes. All right, parts of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. And that's where you get your Brexit and all these different nations breaking up from the EU. But there shall be in it the strength of the iron. So it still got that Roman Empire strength. All right. They're trying to break in pieces the nations. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, but it's still weak. All right. Still had that financial power, that military power. But as far as a unity is weakened. And the power in the earth has been weakened. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. So those European nations, since they broke off, they try to mix up with Africa and all these different nations, but they're being rejected. Just like France is being rejected by Africa. But they shall not cleave one to another, see? Even as iron is not mixed with clay. You know, so them weaker nations, they're not gonna want to deal with the Roman Empire or the EU or NATO. They're gonna side with the BRICS nations or with Russia and China. They're not gonna deal with NATO. And in the days of these kings, which we're seeing right now, in the days of these kings like Saudi Arabia, uh, Russia, Europe, England, you know, China, all of them are kings, even America. The kingdom, and in the days of these kings shall Yahweh the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. So the Lord is establishing his kingdom in the midst of all. He said he prepared a table for us in the presence of our enemies. And that kingdom is being built up spiritually, which is called the hope of the elect of Israel. And the which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to another people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So this is what we're supposed to pay attention to and look for, our salvation. Because it's telling us what times, it's showing what times we're in. All right? For as much as thou sawest the stone cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it break in pieces the iron, brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great power have made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. All right, so it said, who is able to make war with the beast, man? And they done brought in Poland into the war on the forefront, and they said, so Russia said it, that they're in direct war with NATO now. This is from Russia. Jeremiah 51:11, make bright the arrows, gather the shields. All right, so that's what they're doing on both sides. A nuclear arms race, you know, building up their defenses, right? Making the arrows, their missiles, equipping them with technology. Yahweh have raised up. They said, who is able to make war with the beast? Well, here's the answer. Yahweh have raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, man. As far as land demographics, Russia's in the place where the Medes was at. So the Lord has raised up the spirit of Russia, that Soviet Union, and made them want those lands like Ukraine back again. So the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is raising them up. They just dropped, I think, like 70 missiles yesterday, and they brought out their own currency with China. So this is a full-on war now. So the Lord is raising up the spirit of the kings of Russia, all right, the kings of the East. For his device is against Babylon. So the ultimate plan is with Russia is to destroy America. To destroy it because it is the vengeance of Yahweh, the vengeance of his temple. And ultimately it's the plan of the Most High that he put in the hearts of people like Russia to destroy this place, America, which is nothing but a war machine for Europe. All right. All right, let's read this article real quick. It says, this is from Anton Gerashenko. And it says, conflict with NATO, the beast basically, is inevitable because Poland is getting ready to attack Kaliningrad. All right, and Kaliningrad is the area where Russia keeps a lot of their missiles. All right. That's deep. We need to produce more powerful and modern weapon systems, given the inevitability of a clash with NATO in the near future. This is Russia speaking. Russia must prepare for war with NATO in 2023, state TV guest says. Let's see what they got to say.
этому открыто готовятся.
Oh, he's speaking in Russian.
Не ядерное, не обязательно. Первый
Подождите,
этап,
если Польша идет на...
ну,
This is not nuclear, not necessarily. If Poland goes to Kaliningrad, God forbid, or anywhere else,
Не дай бог.
Польша.
На Калининград или куда-то
Польша
еще.
открыто готовится к этому.
Poland is openly preparing for that. So the probability of this conflict, in my estimate, is high.
Польша к этому открыто готовится. Поэтому вероятность этого конфликта, по моим оценкам, высока.
There you go. All right, so yeah, man, it's a time for peace and a time for war. Revelations 8 and 13. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, "Woe, woe, woe!" That's World War III. To the inhabitants of the earth, there's gonna be a world war all around the earth. By reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound, man. And they about to blow the trumpets real soon. And all hell gonna break loose on the earth with the MOTB. They're pushing towards a digital system, seeming like this year, close to around March. And at the same time, this war is escalating. That's already a hot war. That's gonna go turn more direct and also nuclear. All right, ultimately leading to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, America, and World War III. You know, which opens the door for salvation of Israel to come to pass.